Welcome to the Casual Adventure Notes podcast, the Can podcast, lazy, easy listening about little life's adventures.
And lessons.
I'm Duz.
And I'm Devy.
Let's get straight into it. We'll go with our palate cleanser today.
Yes, so we are doing 101 Things I Learned in Law School. Want to pick a number?
7.
7. Lucky 7. All right. God. How do you pronounce this word? Adversarial isn't necessarily bad. Most common law legal systems are adversarial. Two sides, typically represented by experts and expert advocates, argue their position to the court. The judge does not directly investigate the case and usually questions witnesses only to clarify confusing testimony. In an inquisitorial procedure, a judge or group of judges directly investigates a case of questions litigants. Civil law nations typically employ inquisitorial procedures, while common law nations tend to use them for only minor court disputes such as traffic tickets and small claims.
What's that, TLDR?
The what?
Too long, didn't read.
I mean, not coming from a legal background, it's also a little bit doesn't really make too much sense to me. I think what it's saying here is that maybe seeing, a Judge Judy episodes, it's the best reference for how so the law and law and cases undertaken, but it sounds like there's two legal law systems. One where it's largely where there's like a side in this is represented by experts and people that are in subject matter experts on some topic, and there's no, like, for example, like what we probably see commonly a lot of those shows where there's like two sides, witness, and they ask questions. The judgment, the ruling, and that's probably what is under the inquisitorial procedure, or
Wait, there's a, like, it's talking about, so in like court, it's a process?
Yes.
And then,
I mean, all court cases are processes.
no, but I meant like this particular thing, like to interview the person, and there's like more than one way to do it. So it's saying,
yes. So it sounds like one is around, well, I guess that makes sense. Inquisitory procedures where the judge or group of people or group of judges directly investigates the case and questions litigants. So I think it's the judge or maybe jury that decides the outcome. But there has to be some sort of storytelling and narrative to essentially establish each side, and then I guess one person agrees, or that judge or that group of people agree with whoever presents the best case. And there's another legal system where it's just a presentation from experts and advocates to argue their position, but the judge doesn't actually really ask questions or investigates. It's just there listening.
right. Okay.
Actually, that seems to make more sense now that I read it. Apologies, we didn't study law, nor are we from legal background, so this one's a little bit more, a bit more time to digest to understand what it means.
That's why those books are fun, though, because you get to learn new things.
Yeah.
Okay, let's dive into our main course then. Other books that I've been reading that's less educational, but as entertaining and valuable in my own personal opinion. I've just finished the second book of the trilogy book called, the first book's called The Atlas 6.
The what?
The Atlas 6, like Atlas, like ATLAS. But in this context, it's actually a name, The Atlas 6. And it's a story that follows, it's a dark academia fantasy type novel for those who are interested. And it went really viral on TikTok and social media back in like 2021 or something like that. And it's a story that follows 6 uniquely talented like magicians, and they all have like these special abilities, but they're like the top of the trade. Like they're the most powerful of their generation. And every 10 years, there is this library or this society called the Alexandrian Society. And every 10 years, they recruit new members. And this year is the 10th year, so it's time to initiate new members, and these 6 get scouted and recruited to join. But the condition of joining is you have to do 1 year of like initiation, and then 6 joins, but only 5 progresses. So 1 gets eliminated, they say, and spoiler alert, 1 has to die.
So is this when they get to recruit, is to replace the existing council of magicians, or is it just with there's a bigger group?
There's a bigger group. So every 10 years when they formally become as part of the society, they will always remain part of the society. But obviously these people they're not immortal. There's magic in this world, but you're still human, so you're not immortal. So eventually they die out. So to keep the society like running, they're going to have to recruit people. But because it's so exclusive and they're so precious about the society, they only recruit every 10 years. And the whole like idea of the society is this society, it's kind of like framed around like the society is in a building that is a giant library that has like an archive of just like knowledge of everything in the world. Like anything to be known can be known, and only the people as part of the society can access it. And then they are also contributing to the archive. So as like part of their journey to initiate and like become a part of the society, they're like asked to contribute to the society by doing their own research. And because they're such brilliant people, like they're always going to do like really fascinating research to add to that knowledge. And then the society is kind of like vision, moral.
What?
I don't know. Mission. I don't know what the right word is, but their whole thing is knowledge is dangerous, therefore it should be protected and not shared. And then whereas like they actually have enemies. So there's like a group called the Forum where they're quite the opposite, where they're just like knowledge should be shared and then people can do what they want with it. Like knowledge should be transparent. Like you shouldn't keep it to yourself. And then as kind of like a guarantee if you're part of the society, when you go back to the world, you end up like acquiring like a wealth of knowledge that you just organically become the most powerful people, the most influential. Like there's like they introduce characters where like she's like one of the girl is like a founder of a very successful business. She like I think like climbs the political ranks, like all that stuff. So there's like an appeal to join the society or you want to be a part of it because you get a lot of benefits and values from it as well. But generally the people they scout out, so the 6 main characters of this book that they scout out, it's actually a little bit deep and darker because these people are already powerful. So it's like, what is there actually more to one? Because they're powerful enough that in everyday life, they would naturally be sought out with promising careers and stuff like that. So for a little bit of context, there is 6 characters. Let me just find out their names. There's Libby Rhodes, and there's Nico, Varona, and they're both like physical power-based magicians that can manipulate anything physical. So they can like they can like look at a chair and like destroy it in 1 second or break into a car because they can like manipulate like physical manner.
Yeah.
And then there's Raina, who kind of controls nature to a certain extent. It's not very clear what her power is, but it looks like she's like a source of power because she can hear plants. She can grow a seed into a tree like immediately. Parissa Kamali, she is a telepathic thing, so she can read minds. Callum can read emotions, so he's an empath. And then Tristan, he can see what's really there. Because the world is full of magic, a good example of this is a lot of people, you know how like people put on makeup to hide like a pimple? In a magical world, they create illusions so they appear better. And then he can always see through illusions. That's an example of like he can see through everything. And then like their power runs a little bit deeper. So like Nika and Libby, who are like the physical manipulators, they just have like the stamina where they can do a lot more to it compared to like another physical magician. The empath that can feel feelings can actually influence them and dig out like your deepest, darkest feelings and like kind of get you to act on it. So like, this is a spoiler, so don't listen or just like turn off this episode. Like he like gets someone to unalive themselves by like making them question like their life, even though they probably weren't suicidal at that point in time, but they had something dark in them that he pulled out. It was kind of in an effort to protect themselves, so the like context kind of made sense. But he's like that powerful, so that's like why they're kind of like the top of the chain, and then that's why they got recruited. And the appeal for them to join kind of varies between characters, but they're just like they're already the most powerful. There's only so much the world can give them, so what can give them more? And then the society is basically promising them more.
Okay.
So it's like this like. I guess the main theme of the story is like, if you have so much power, what are you even really going to do about it? And it kind of explores that. And then as a result, it also just explores like the general themes of life and ethics and identity and how that kind of plays into society or the world as a whole. I said to my friend as I was reading it, I'm like, I feel like I'm having an existential.
What?
Existential.
I know what you're saying. Oh, I can't even think of it. Existential. It's like, yeah, I know what you mean.
Existential
We'll find out the
crisis. I can't.
Even though I can't even say it myself, but I know what you mean. It's like existential.
Existential crisis.
Okay.
Like an inner conflict.
Existential. Is that it?
Yes.
Yes, that's it.
Google says it's a form of inner conflict. It is characterized by the impression that life lacks meanings and is accompanied by various negative experiences such as stress, anxiety, despair, and depression.
That just sounds like a usual like midlife crisis.
Yeah, but like this series like tones it up real hard, and I'm like, the author must have these kind of like episodes daily. But it's kind of interesting because I think it really, I think part of the reason why it went viral, besides it being a pretty well written story and the characters are just really, really like interesting to read about. But I think even though it's like dialed up and quite extreme in the book, they're like feelings you can kind of like see or experience yourself personally. Like, you know, the thirst of knowledge, and then when you know more, what do you even do? Like, I always think about it. Like, think about like when you're a kid, you're so innocent and ignorant that the world is so much better. But then the more you learn, the more like...
The more you realize that society and reality is not as... it's not, you know, unicorns and rainbows.
Which is so unfortunate because unicorns and rainbows are so cool. I was talking to a friend literally about it that day, probably because I was reading this book, so the topic like makes sense. And then she just made a comment like offhand. She goes, like, I wish I didn't waste time growing up because I believed in like blind, unconditional love. Like she was like a true romantic. You know, you watched every Disney movie, you read every romance book, and you think like someone will give up the world for you. And, you know, love will conquer all and stuff. And love is, I'm still a bit of a romantic where I think like love will triumph a lot of things, but there is also a practical layer to it. And she was basically just saying like, I wish I didn't waste time chasing something that wasn't always possible and was a little bit more pragmatic about it as well and didn't waste time. And I argued, I'm like, well, firstly, I don't think it's a waste of time because I think it's a learning journey. But second, I'm like, I think that would be a horrible youth if you didn't believe in like blind love and romantic, and you didn't think you were invincible and you didn't take risks and do a million things, because I think that's actually what's so beautiful about youth and being young.
Yeah, it's almost like a balance between being realistic, but then not being a point where you're so pessimistic where you just don't give things a try because you just feel like, well, I'm not going to be able to do that, or that seems too hard, and then you just don't put yourself out there. And sometimes you put yourself out there and then things don't work out, but then like I gave it a try, it didn't work out, and you don't have that what's that thing? Like you don't have regrets essentially.
Yeah. I think if you are mature naturally and you're willing to learn and stuff like that, you're naturally just going to figure things out anyways, and making mistakes is part of learning.
Yeah.
So I think it's a waste to like rush into that and lose that, because you'll probably spiral like these characters in the books.
I think I've met a few people where they're very overly pessimistic, and obviously something's happened in their lives that has made them, either not trusting of people, or, they maybe burnt in relationships where they've essentially become very guarded and protected. So, and, sometimes the whole thing is that you can, a squirtle falling, the whole sort of approach around like you can't trust and you can only rely on yourself. And it's really sad when that sort of becomes someone's mindset, because there are certain instances that have happened in their life that has caused them to, become who they are.
I agree. There is some like negative unset, and there is way to kind of learn to deal with it and overcome it and stuff like that. So there's still good in the world, and there's still stuff in life to enjoy despite how not great it is sometimes. So the book kind of explores those themes in detail. I've only read 2 out of 3 books, so I actually don't know what the end of it is, and I don't want to spoil it too much, but just to kind of tease it a little bit, the main themes about life ethics, ego, identity, whatever of each character is, it debates order and chaos. It debates duality and balance. It debates nature and life, which is probably more nature and nurture, mind and power, influence and control, perception and reality. And basically, the perception of reality has been the most interesting for me, I think. So this Christian who can see through illusions, essentially, his power actually, when I say he can see through illusion, he can't even control when he sees through illusion. He just sees. So his reality is what he sees, but someone else will see something completely different because they see the illusion. So they see only that. So then it kind of plays into that. Okay, but what is actually true then in that scenario?
Isn't his power that he sees like under the facade and what is of the essence of the person?
That's just the surface. So
then what's the power? Isn't you just say his power is that he can see the reality of the person?
So it gets a bit deeper because as he learns to hone his power, because he actually doesn't think he's that powerful at the start, and neither do a lot of people, because on the surface he just sounds like someone who can just see through illusions. That's it. And they're like, cool, that's like beneficial, but not really. But he applies it in different ways where some people don't know about, which is a level up, but still not that high. Whereas like for example, he works in the venture capital part of a business, and he looks through proposals of ideas, and he can immediately see if something is like going to be successful, because what is like a true product versus what is just fluff, for example. So that's something he can see through as well, even though it's a document. So it kind of plays on that. But then the guy that Atlas is the guy that recruits him into the society, says you have more potential and you're a lot more powerful than you think. And then his character development is him learning to kind of like unlock that untapped power. And then his power goes insane. Like he can start seeing like the breakdown of things. Like he can see time, which sounds really freaking confusing.
In time.
see time.
Like
so there's
see-
like a milestone moment in the book, because one of the things that hasn't really been documented or done before or known, and that's a lie, it was known, but they didn't know you could manipulate time, like how
to
well
speed
you
it up
could,
or to slow it
or
down
anything.
or
Just anything to do with time.
go back in time.
And then this group is like, we reckon we can manipulate time somehow. And then like one of the physical manipulators, they're like, we can only manipulate what we can see, so we can't manipulate time because we can't see it, because it's not like an atom or anything like that.
Yeah.
But then Tristan learns that he can see time. And then as a result, there was like a milestone moments where like Libby like stopped time for a couple of seconds, and then they realized like how powerful he actually is, because he can see things that people can't see.
Mm.
So it kind of like goes into that. It's very complex. I don't think I'm like even explaining it that well, if I'm honest. I just think that like it makes you think about a lot of things more deeply. And the reason I brought up the Atlas, besides it being a really cool story and me wanting to talk about it because it's my current read, is also because it got, well, sort of green-lit for a TV series. So
That's good. TV series are like, because it's a 6-series book, did you say?
Three
series
trilogy.
book. Yeah. I guess technically you could make a 3-part movie, but I feel like a TV series just gives the opportunity for them to really keep true to the book and not have to rush production because of cost or trying to wrap it up in a 2-hour movie or something like that. That's good.
I think like it should be deliberate if something should be a movie or series. I think on paper, like most books turn into a movie, but I think this one is very TV series. Like about, when I say TV series, it's actually going to be a web series, because Amazon is the one that picked it up. And the only reason I know that is like I went to buy like the next book and it was like
soon to be made into a TV
like soon
series.
to be, and I was like, oh my god, that's so exciting! And apparently this like got announced like ages ago. I just didn't know about it. But there hasn't been much traction, so I don't know if it's going to get pulled in there, and it'll be very sad. But the fact that they have that as you're buying the book, I hope it means that it's actually in pre-production at the moment. There's not a lot that is known about it. There's been opinion pieces that are quite old that have been written, because it's actually a hard book to get into. It took me a couple of chapters because the world building and the introduction to characters takes a little while, and then you just get
context setting.
Yeah,
before.
you just get sucked in.
Yeah.
And then there was an opinion piece that said that like, oh, this is going to be really hard to get an audience into it because the characters are very unlikable, because they're all like, they make very ethical, questionable choices, like the guy that unalived someone, for example, and using his empathy.
You need a villain in every story.
They're all villains. Like they all give off villain energy, is like kind of part of their characters. And if they're not villain energy, they're very annoying. So I can kind of see why this person had written, they're very unlikable, and generally in a good story, you want to root for someone, or there has to be someone that you kind of want to like gun for to like follow the series. Like less of a movie, more of a series. Like you want to follow someone.
That's true. We all like to root for the hero or the protagonist. Because even like in those films where it's prefaced around a villain that was in a previous story. So for example, like was it Sleeping Beauty that had Maleficent in it? Is that the
Maleficent is in
Sleeping Beauty?
I thought it was in Snow White. Snow White had the old lady with the apple, but then she turned into that other lady with the crown and the hood. That's not Maleficent. Maleficent has the horn. Yeah, it was Sleeping Beauty there.
It's Sleeping Beauty. But when they made the movie, like they had to, in some ways, humanize her and make that character likable, because it was just her being evil the whole time. I don't know whether people would have watched it, but because I remember watching that and it tried to give some background and story of why she became who she was, and that she was, born like a normal person, and that she got, scarred by that king. But yes, it's hard to watch a movie where it's just all a bunch of bad guys. Yeah.
So I actually agree with this statement. Like I'm like, yeah, like there has to be like a character that you like, even if you might not like them in real life. If you like them, I think that's a big thing. And there's actually a really good quote in the atlas that kind of plays on that, but I'm trying to bring it up. But why I bring it up, I will also add that I actually disagree with that opinion piece anyways. I think the characters are likable and there are characters that will grow on you. I think at the start, a lot of them aren't likable and you're like, wow, they're all effed up. Why would I want to like follow them and stuff like that? But it actually doesn't take long for you to like one or two of them or a few of them.
It kind of goes back to that when you were just talking about, fairy tales and living life where you assume the best and you're optimistic. I think in every story, you kind of want that. And it's hard to see that with a bunch of bad guys.
Yeah. Quick quote. I like to highlight like quotes that I like in books because I like to just like repeat them because they're fun, but I can't find it easily without. I've apparently highlighted too much because I can't find it easily. But it was really funny because one of the character like does something and then he like really doesn't get along with this girl, Parissa and Callum. So Callum doesn't like Parissa, Parissa doesn't like Callum. But then everyone starts taking Parissa's side because what she ends up doing is like reading their thoughts and like playing into it. And she's like very like damsel in distress and she plays people all the time. Like she always, there's like a scene or a line that she goes where she goes, someone enters the room and she like naturally like looks shocked that they just entered, even though she knew like minutes ago that they were coming because she could read their thoughts. So it would be unnatural to like stay still. So she like makes a conscious effort to put on the theater to be like
purposely reacting.
Yeah. So
even
she's
though
like
she knows the outcome.
Trying to be like more human about it and stuff like that. But she plays into that to like manipulate people, whereas Callum doesn't, which is like a really interesting take on him because everyone goes, if you're an empath and you understand everyone so deeply, shouldn't you have more sympathy about it? But instead he's like so cold about it. Like he's really like sarcastic all the time and doesn't get sad and all that stuff. And then he always plays into it because he goes, because the rooted feelings of people, it's not that always that sympathetic. And then he made an assessment and I think the quote was something along like the line, I forgot that humanity is showing that you're vulnerable, so I need to fake being vulnerable or something like that to make him more likable.
Relatable.
Because he knows too much and he always like is like cocky and stuck up. He realized that's why he's not likable. And he's like, I need to play more into it like Parissa if I choose to be likable. So it's like, yeah. But trust me, some of the characters are likable or they're interesting enough that you will want to follow it. And then the other kind of comments is like, yeah, the world is quite complex. Like, how do you articulate that in a visual way? Because a series is very different to a book. A book, you have the advantage of like writing out things in order to like give the additional context. But like watching something on screen and just having a monologue go on for too long to over-explain something would be very hard to watch. So they were just saying like that might be hard to do. But I can imagine how they would be able to do it. And I think this is one of the series that I will like. I think who they're going to cast and stuff is going to be interesting because there's actually illustrations of how the character should look and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting how that translates, which is something I wanted to bring up, which is, do you think when there is movie adaptations or TV adaptations from a novel, does that ruin the book at all? Or like, what's your take on that?
I actually would find it exciting if you're a fan of the series, fan of a book series, doing a TV series or movies, it brings it to life. And particularly fictional books, because you're like, I'm sure there's, mythical creatures and other things. You're like, I wonder how they're going to sort of integrate that and do that. I'm assuming now it's a lot more easy to do because of CGI and maybe even AI to do that, all that stuff. But I mean, like growing up for me, like I didn't actually read that much books, but I really enjoyed, for example, like all the Harry Potter movies, and they was all based off books. Hunger Games, I thought was done really well too. And
Have you read the book though?
no, but I really like Jennifer Lawrence in that character. But you know, I mean, going back to Harry Potter because that's the one I did read. I did watch the movies. I know they had to sort of skip out on a number of characters and a number of sort of side storylines. But regardless, I thought it was executed very well. I'm sure people have their opinions around the actor selection and, you know, if those were very suitable for those people. And I think they were. I think like Emma Watson, for example, was probably like the perfect Hermione Granger. Similar with, what's his name again? Rupert Grint? Is that his name? The one who plays Ron Weasley. Harry, I'm like, kind of bit on the fence about it. But overall, I mean, I think they're pretty like highly rated. You kind of look at the, what's that score? Is it Rotten Tomatoes score? Or what is the common one?
There's a few. Rotten Tomatoes, one of them.
The main one, yeah. But they always score very highly. IMDb or something?
Yeah. What does that stand for?
It's one of those things we just don't know. We just know the acronym. Like something movie, something.
Internet Movie Database.
Okay. Well, that's IMDb is a lot more easier to say. It is actually because with the Harry Potter book series, they went through so many directors. So if you actually watch the series, the movie series, you can see that every director has a very specific, a different style. And so watching it more consecutively, you can see that evolution and that change of the style of how they film, how they're, you know, positioning the characters, what the focus is. The first two series, the first two movies, Philosopher's Stone and Chamber of Secrets, was very, in a way, kid oriented. And that was because the director, well, I'm not sure whether it's because of the director, but the director who was the one who filmed the Home Alone series, and he was very sort of known for doing, you know, comedic kid movies. And so that sort of translated in those two, whereas the subsequent ones were a little bit more adult themed. But I guess you could say, and I'll also argue that, you know, in the books and later on, they're a little bit older and, you know, the themes become a bit mature, hence why that's sort of why the styling is presented as it is.
Yeah. I think films are just different to the book. And I think when they turn into something visual, so a TV series or a movie, it's only done well if it's been actually adapted for those mediums. So I think like when you were saying earlier, you know, they cut out characters and certain scenes and stuff like that. I think that needs to happen because those probably only work in a book and they won't work on movies and TV series. And then I think, yeah, there's like, it causes like a discourse amongst especially those who read it. But I think for consumers who watch the movies alone or TV series alone without watching the book, it's still an experience. And it's kind of nice because you give that world and that story to other people who might not be readers. So it's like nice.
Yeah. I would never, like, I mean, Hunger Games, I knew of the book, but I just wouldn't sit down and read it. But I really enjoyed the movies and the themes, and that had a lot of stuff around like, you know, different classes of people and, you know, the whole sort of dictatorship, political aspects of it, and about, you know, overindulgence and overconsumption, and
yeah, it's a good
the you know, the unbalanced scaling of wealth, which is pretty much prevalent in, you know, day and age now.
Yeah, I also watch Hunger Games without reading the books, and I really, really enjoyed the movie for all the same reasons that you do. So I think it's worth it when things get adapted. But I do, and I don't know if I always agree with the book is better than the movie, blah, blah, blah. I think it's just a different experience, if I'm honest. But something that does get ruined sometimes is sometimes when you get really into a book and you get really into a character and you build up the character in your head, how they look, what their actual personality is. And then if you get really invested in the imagination version of that character, if they get adapted, I think that always brings a level of disappointment. So I think as a reader, sometimes sometimes you just won't always get to enjoy the movie or TV series because you had already imagined something else. So it's ruining it for you if it's been portrayed by something else. I think most of the time it's appearance related. Like I know for me, because I read a lot of romance, and if there's like a male lead, for example, and they write and they describe him, I have like an image in my head of what he looks like. And then like if they cast a guy and they like decide for him to look a certain way, I'm just like, not that you're ugly, it's just not what I had in my head.
Do you think everyone, when they read a book, where there isn't any illustrations, but it's more descriptive in the words, do you think everyone will have a different version of that person in their mind?
Yeah.
That means it's really hard for
you can't.
the casting director to cast someone that would fit and tick everyone's boxes. That's why they have a lot of times when they do those books to movies, they get the author as a consultant, and that person will be involved in, sometimes have, particularly if they're selling the rights, they'll might be heavily involved with, certain directions on casting or the plot or the storyline that gets shown. Yeah.
I think one of the most fun things about reading though is imagining like what they look like instead, even if it's like incorrect, even if it's different to what the author is probably imagining. I think there's just something about building a world in your head that's really exciting.
Yeah. So like one thing I remember when the Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire came out, and that was when they introduced that character Cedric Diggory. I think he was always prefaced as being very handsome, and so I remember when they cast Robert Pattinson in it. This is sort of pre-Twilight days. Like I remember there was like a lot of mixed reception about whether he was suitable as Cedric Diggory. Some people didn't find him as handsome, and then some were like, "Oh yeah," but they're like, "Oh, he looks a little bit too boyish and not as rugged and." Whatever the sort of version of the character they had in the book. So you can't ever really win. But how about you? Actually, did you read Harry Potter?
I didn't read Harry Potter.
Okay, all right.
Despite how much fantasy I like now, I just never got into Harry Potter. I don't know why.
Do you think Robert Pattinson was good as Cedric Diggory? You watched the movie though, yeah?
Yeah, I'm very bad at judging who's good looking and not, because I rarely do. For some reason, when I look at girls, I'm like, she's so pretty. But I think a lot of girls are pretty because I think females are just like built different. But I rarely pay attention. Not in like a what's the word? Not in like I'm such a good person I don't see appearance way. I literally just don't really think
about people's attractiveness level.
It's not the first thing I notice, I think. And I think it's because I haven't defined in my head what I think is good looking. Even like when I imagine characters, they're not quite like I just can't imagine that person in real life either. So I think it's hard.
Yeah. I think in previous podcasts you talked more about anime characters' attractiveness more than real life people.
Yeah, I think like 2D men are hot, but like I don't know, in real life, that's like not my first thing. I think I just find men so scary in real life that my immediate reaction is not to even think about their appearance and whether or not I think they're good looking or not. But I think if someone asked me to really stare at someone and then form an opinion, I could. Robert Pattinson, I would say is...
Do you watch him in the Batman?
No, but I think anyone who plays Batman is by default attractive because Batman as a character is attractive.
That's your basis is more on the character and what makes him Bruce Wayne, right?
Yeah.
As in like not the physical, it's just more like his personality. That's what you find attractive about Batman.
Yes. Yep.
And I guess the story about what happened to his parents and how he became who he is.
In fairness, the 2D men that I think are hot are also based on their character. So maybe that's just how I judge. But women I look at and just like without knowing them, I'm like, oh, you're so pretty. And then if they're like an ugly personality, then they're not pretty anymore. I don't know why. I think I'm just completely biased.
No, it just means that you judge people for what's inside of them.
No, don't mistake that as like a good-hearted trait, I think.
Well, it's a coincidental good trait.
I guess so.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I think Robert Pattinson would be like overall like an attractive man. I mean, he got casted as the Twilight main guy.
Yeah.
And he's supposed to be overly handsome. I don't think if there's ever a character written that's supposed to be quotation mark good looking, handsome, like, oh my God, like girls froth over them. Like, I don't think you can ever cast that right. Because I think appearances are subjective.
Yeah, but you'd appeal to the masses.
Yeah, if there's like a mass thing. But that's changed over time as well. Like if you think, again, I'm just going to talk about women because I don't know anything about men. Like if you've seen anything online, there's literally like, what's the word? Like different definitions of what the mass standard of beauty was. And it also varies culture to culture. So it's like once upon a time, like it was really skinny girls, like way too skinny. And then now it's like curves are in. Like it becomes a trend, which is so wrong, by the way. Like I don't think beauty and appearances should be a trend. But like that's what I'm saying. I think mass opinions of what is conventionally attractive also changes over time. So I think that's always hard to do as well.
It is a trend though. I mean, I remember like back when I was younger, like everyone liked the appearance of a tan and being like nice brown and bronzed. Whereas now I feel like it's almost the opposite. And maybe it's from actually the Twilight series and that whole vampire look of being very pale looking. But now that's sort of like the thing where everyone's like, oh yeah, you know, looking pale is, you know, the level of being attractive.
I just hate that beauty standards is the thing in general. Like I just think it just annoys me. It
Probably
just irks me.
It probably ties to like some, I'm assuming some massive company and they've sort of marketing, they've sort of infiltrated social media to sort of popularize something that's based on a product they're about to launch or sell, you know. Maybe like they're sort of wanting to be like, you know, trying to sell sunscreen, for example. Maybe they're trying to like boost sales. They're like, all right, let's make being pale in and we'll sell more sunscreen.
So gross. I hate the world. See, this is what I mean. The more you learn and the more you realize about things, the more angrier you get about life because
that's why, ignorance is bliss, like you said.
Totally. Twilight was actually one of the movies that got ruined for me because I did read those books and then I just had a different imagination of how everything was. And then when I watched the movie, it was very disappointing in more than one way. It got better. I think the first movie it's literally become a joke. I don't know why. I don't know how it turned out like that. It was very memeable. The second movie was boring, but to be fair, the book was kind of boring as well. Like it was kind of just like a filler to like progress things and like to show off how much they like each other truly. And then the third one onwards, I think the movies were like okay.
Yeah, I didn't read the books and the movies, to be honest. I wouldn't have watched them if I hadn't like been exposed to hearing so much about the hype and the pandemonium series was released. Because I watched it, I was like, this even the storyline, I was like, this is not really anything that would personally I would find appealing. And there was some I remember like in the first book or the first movie, sorry, I didn't read the book. There's a scene where like I think when the first two main characters meet and like Robert Pattinson, what's the
Edward Collins. Right?
Cullen. Edward Cullen. Whereas he meets the girl, meets Bella, and he just can't control himself because, like, apparently the smell of her blood or whatever is just making him go crazy. And I just remember, like, him making all these weird faces in the movie. And I'm like, this is very strange. It's like he's so uncomfortable. Yeah. Anyway,
it was Twilight is actually, because I read it as a teenager, it really is written for teenagers. It's like it's romance before anything else for teenagers. So it's written that way. Like, I don't think you would have been the demographic, if I'm honest, when you watched it.
Yes, and I wasn't the demographic for the movies, but I just watched it because I was on Netflix and I was like, let's give it a try. And I think I watched all of the movies and then I was like...
Sometimes you just need to finish things. Sometimes you just pick up a series. You just need to finish it because you started it. Like, it has to be terrible for you not to finish something.
Yeah, I mean, because I probably have some level of OCD. So like even when I play games and I'm like, this is not a great game, I'll just be like, I'm just going to finish it. I'm going to collect everything so that I can put it away and know it's complete in the back of my mind. Otherwise, it's just going to be like in the back of my head, like, oh, didn't do this properly, you know?
Completionist.
And that's, I'm sure, how a lot of those companies or, you know, where they release collections, they're like, do you want the full collection? You have to buy this. You know, like whether it's Pokemon cards or, you know, those troll dolls and like collecting every single
like
one.
limited runs of things.
Well, just generally, like they'll release collections and you just feel like, well, I'm already collected everything today and I had to buy the new release, you know. And at some point, you know, you hope they stop because you'll just keep spending money. But yeah.
I don't know if we've talked about this before. Do you know what a gacha is? Gacha. I don't know if that's a shortened thing. Let me check.
You're talking about Gachapon?
Maybe that's where it's from. There's like a gaming genre, maybe? I don't know. But it's kind of like gambling. It's where you pay money or win, or you keep playing the game to earn like the points you need. And then you use those credits to randomly get like a character or a weapon depending on the game. Like it's a randomized thing. So it's like it's a gacha because it's you don't know what you're getting.
Stuff.
And you'll collect, well, some people collect it. So one of the most popular games that came out in the last few years, I think it still does quite well, is called Genshin Impact.
Oh yeah.
And Genshin Impact is a open world. Let me ask the internet to explain it because I won't explain it well.
Is that one of those games where it just doesn't ever end? Because they're just constantly adding arcs or
I think there'll be
it?
an end. There'll be an end. So Genshin Impact is an open world action RPG. RPG stands for role-playing games developed by MiHoYo. I hope I pronounced that right. Released in 2020. And it became popular because of its expansive, engaging story and gacha-based character acquisition system. So the gacha character acquisition system is what I wanted to talk about. It's a famous system that they apply to a lot of games to kind of like hook people. It's probably not that ethical, if I'm honest, because generally if you have a personality where you want to collect characters and stuff like that, you're going to spend a lot of money trying to get these characters. And people do. Like they've made millions of just like releasing a character. And the way they do it is like they'll release limited runs or only like certain periods of time you can get certain characters and stuff like that. Yeah. Especially like powerful characters. And it's a combination of trying to acquire powerful characters so that you can progress the game, but also because you just want to collect them. And these characters are gorgeous, by the way. They're so like nicely designed. They're so pretty. Like part of the reason I started playing it, I don't play it anymore because I don't have time, not because I don't want to, is because the characters are so pretty. Like I remember seeing like promo posters and videos and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh my God, like she's so cute. Like I want to play as her. And then I started collecting them, but like I don't have that kind of disposable income just to like put into a game like that. So I actually don't fall into the gacha hole that easily. So thankfully. Yeah. But it's pretty sad because a lot of people can get hooked on it, and it's been really ethically discussed, like if it's ever right to truly put that into game.
To pay for progress.
Particularly if you pay or make it like unplayable unless you pay. Like they say it's a pay to win game because they're saying a lot of people are arguing like games like Genshin Impact to progress it, to unlock new worlds and go to the next section of the story of the game. You can't without these powerful characters, and it's like almost impossible to get them because there is ways to get credit to like
where you don't have to physically,
but it forces you to
money.
play more hours of the games to do it, and then they're just saying, but physically, like it's almost impossible.
Well, at the end of the day, I mean, these games are a business, and you get to download it for free. So versus a traditional game, like when you back in the day when you played Mario, you buy the cartridge, and then they get their money and sales from that, and then you play that, and there's pay to play or pay to progress. Whereas those games, they have to make the money somehow. Like, you're downloading it for free. Like, where's it going to come from? And it has to come from money that gives you credits or something, or like you said, to buy, certain items or characters. But I don't think the only game I've ever had to pay was Candy Crush. So I think I was like,
Oh, that's actually one of the ones.
Candy Crush was a game, like, I think I was also trying to complete it, but I remember, I think at this point it's probably at like hundreds or thousands of levels, because I think I got to like the end, and then after that I was like, all right, I'm going to stop, because I remember like you would be like one move away from completing it, but then you've used all the moves that you were allocated, when you're playing for free, and then I remember like paying like $1 to like just do that move so I can get to the next level.
I think there's a word for it, but I can't remember. I want to call it dark design, but I don't think it's called dark design. But it's like unethical designs, because you're intentionally designing something to be addictive, which is not good. Like there's a whole documentary on it, I think, about social media. Like when social media first came out, like everything was designed in a way to, on the surface, optimize engagement, but really you're encouraging pretty negative behaviors from people. So like the likes, that's why you can hide likes now, for example, on Instagram. Like that's bad for your thing. Like how easy it is to endlessly scroll. Like there's a lot of that. And people say that is unethical design because you're encouraging like a negative behavior. But I understand it from a business point of view, of course. But like, just ethically, it's just a challenge. So like gambling and pay to win, kind of like forcing people to spend and stuff, has been such a big topic for so long that last year China did a really controversial thing, like $1 million impact thing, where they introduced a new regulation where gacha games had more rules to oblige for. I don't know it off the top of my head, but it's like they'll enforce like spending caps. They're going to ban high price virtual items trading. They're going to like force game publishers to implement stricter anti-addiction measures. So it's kind of like in Australia with gambling, we have a lot of what's the word? Like anti-addiction, anti-gambling. It's like gambling companies have to follow all these rules.
Yeah. It's similar to like, smoking. They always have to print those, the side effects of smoking on the pack itself.
Yes. It's stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm sure there's a bit of money that those gambling companies and casinos have to, contribute to, reduce addiction, or, go back to rehabilitating people that have, gone through that addiction. Yeah. That makes sense. I mean, you kind of, a lot of these companies probably say, look, it's a free world. People should be able to do what they want. If they want to blow all their money, that's their choice. But it comes to the point where there needs to be some level of intervention, because, these companies are very, very strategic and very innovative in how they target people. And us as human creatures, we are very susceptible to addiction, whether it's, fast food, soft drinks,
sugar,
gambling, collecting stuff. I think we all have it in us, I think if you think about like, iPhones, for example, I went through a phase where I used to buy like the new iPhone every year. And it's because you wanted to keep up to the latest gadget. Is that sort of an addiction in a way, like having the latest gadgets? Now
a level of it, yeah.
But everything's addicting then, But it's probably arguments around like how much government intervention there should be versus what should be allowed in the, the free world and market.
I just don't think choice is that straightforward, because not everyone's always making an informed choice, or there's like levels of behaviors in a human because of whatever past trauma that could contribute to it. So I think there is like a duty of care to those who can provide it. Goes back to ethics, which kind of like brings me back to why I like Atlas so much. It's a really good series. I'm pretty excited to see how it turns into. I'm also really excited to read the third book and finish it. I'm reading it along with a friend, and I'm so hyped because I've never read a book with a friend before. So I'm really excited to like.
That's so
it's
sad.
so cute, right?
Well, I was like sad. I guess like you would have read books with your class when you were studying in like primary and high school, but those are forced books that you probably didn't really want to read to begin with.
I don't think people reading along with others is that common, is it?
I don't know. Like in movies, I hear about book clubs. Those actually still exist.
Oh yeah,
so
book clubs. I guess that's different.
Where like a whole bunch of people meet up, once a month, to discuss the book and what their insights and views are. Does that still happen these days?
It does. It does, because it's a social thing as well. It's also like it's the equivalent. So book club is the hobby. So reading is the hobby, and they use that as the context to catch up and have an initial discussion point, and then it's more social, right? It's like cycle clubs and stuff like that, where like a group of people cycle together in the morning and they actually just social and like go out for coffee afterwards and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's like a thing to bring people together.
Yeah. So I think it's still common. I don't think I could ever join a book club because my reading pace is very erratic. Like I either binge a book and just finish it way too quickly, or I'll read it, stop for 3 months and then read it again 3 months later. Okay, very inconsistent. But the girl, my friend who I'm reading with her, I'm really excited to, first because I've never done it before, and I think it's cute to like get excited about it with her, especially with the series coming out as well. Like there's a lot to like get excited about. And I think it's always fun to like share a joy with someone. But we didn't make rules at the moment about like how fast or how slow we have to read it. I think we're literally
rules. This is the fun, and it becomes like a job at the end of the day. And you don't want to lose that, that natural interest and passion.
Yeah, it's there's something about human nature where no one likes to be told what to do.
Yeah, yes.
Like everyone's just like they will do the complete opposite.
It's kind of like because I love playing games, but I reached a point where I started becoming very. I would like research heavily on the game and like think about how I would, position or play the game itself, and it became to a point where it became so. What's the word where it's not like natural? It's essentially not, letting it play out as how it would play. That I just stopped playing games because I'm like, this is too much work, and it's becoming like work, So make sure it doesn't become work. Otherwise, you'll just stop doing it and it loses all the fun.
I agree. Okay, let's move on to our...
Organic, that's the word.
Okay.
Sorry,
that's cool. Let's go to our dessert then. Desserts are our gratitude of the week or the moment, whatever it might be. It is an intentional moment in time that we're choosing to appreciate the sweet moments of our lives or week or things.
It's funny, we do this every week, but I never ever think about this. Maybe you go first.
But I think that's why I like this segment a lot, actually, because I think a lot of people forget to practice gratitude because it's so easy to take for granted what you have every day. And it's, I guess, in a weird way, awkward and an effort to go out of your way to consciously, truly take a moment to appreciate something. That's not a common thing people do. Everyone knows that you should be grateful, but people forget all the time. If people could always consciously be grateful for everything, then people would never complain or vent or be angry. But it's not human nature to do that. That's why I think I love this segment because it's you're intentionally taking a moment.
Okay. Well, mine's a very...
It can be small.
And just not a big one. But I drive to work, and I think the day I went this week, it was not any heavy congestion. So I very much appreciate that because I wasn't stuck in, stop-start traffic.
I'm grateful for communication being a way to connect people because I think there's just something really romantic about that. I was talking to someone the other day and we were saying how it's really nice that there's more one way to communicate with people, either be different languages or writing to someone, just the beauty of communication in general, and that being able to foster connection is just really nice.
Yeah, it's so much more accessible now. I think
people take it for granted.
Yeah, even FaceTime, I love
it's so nice.
Yeah, I as opposed to just making a call through, and just hearing someone's voice. I just like using FaceTime now because you can see the person react. You can see them physically, even if you're not, you're not there. So yes, I also agree with that one. That's a good one.
Meal prep. Meal preps are goals or things we are looking forward to doing or have on our agenda that is just worth calling out just cause to make us more accountable, I guess.
Well, we're approaching is it technically spring yet?
It's spring in like a week.
In a week, but it's you can tell it's sort of adjusting because the sun's out a lot more now. So I think I'm going to try to make a more conscious effort to be more outdoorsy because now it doesn't become dark at 5 p.m. So, whether that's going for walks or, hanging out outside. Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to try to do. Make the most of it because next thing you know, a year passes and we're back in winter weather and winter days. And yes, it's the light is very short then.
I'm looking forward to finishing the third book for that Atlas series that I was talking about earlier. Because I literally only finished the second one a couple of days ago. So I'm going to purchase the third one. Actually, that's going to be a lot of fun.
And so you're going to have a very busy few weeks.
I have so many hobbies that I don't know what to do with my free time. Sometimes I'm overwhelmed by choices. Because I like reading, I love watching shows, and I like playing cozy games. And it's when I have a good hour to, I just stare and I'm overwhelmed with choices because which of the three should I start? Because it's a commitment thing because then I know that that's probably going to be my hobby for at least the next few months or few weeks at least.
Yeah, that's why I'm I haven't started any new hobbies because I just cannot commit. So I'm not committing. I'm just going to do nothing.
It's very enjoyable, but it's almost like FOMO. What if I'm missing out by not doing the other thing first? I don't know. It's a bit weird. My reading streak at the moment is quite higher than usual because they say it only takes one good book to get back into reading and then it takes one okay book to fall out of it again and then you'll just do it again and it's just an endless cycle. So I'm kind of on the high at the moment and I don't know when I'm going to drop and then I'll probably end up playing games again or watching shows or something. I don't know.
What's the saying? Good habits take time to develop but can be broken very easily. I don't think that's the actual saying, but like you said, takes a long time to build good traits and do a routine, but kind of takes one sour incident or a break to pretty much undo all that work. So hopefully you don't encounter any bad books then, because otherwise that's the end.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. We appreciate you for staying on and listening. And we will see you next time. Bye.
Cheers.